Well, joining us on Check the News tonight, all the way from Tennessee, please welcome Mayor Glenn Jacobs. Thanks for coming on, Mayor.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I was reading through your life, and it's a pretty interesting interview to be able to do. It's like interviewing Mark Twain because it's quite a life, and you're about at the halfway point. So I wanted to get how you transitioned both out of school into wrestling, then from wrestling into politics. So if you're a great athlete like you were in school, how do you go from, instead of doing basketball or football, how did it open up for professional wrestling?
Sure, that's a great question. I had always played athletics ever since I was a little kid. When I was very small, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. That didn't pan out, frankly, because I wasn't a very good baseball player. I was tall and clumsy and decided to play basketball as I grew to my body. Became a pretty good basketball player. When I got to college, I went to college on a basketball scholarship. When I got to college, I filled out and ended up playing football. And it was a knee injury that caused me to pursue professional wrestling. I'd hurt my knee in football practice. I went to the Chicago Bears camp. I was only there for one day before I was sent home, and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I've always been interested in, as I said, that was my dream, was to be a professional athlete. And didn't want to give that dream up, and was trying to figure out a way that I could still do that with limitations that I had with the knee injury. And it was actually through professional wrestling. I was very blessed to have a very long career in WWE and worked with some great entertainers and went all around the world. And then as my career in WWE was winding down, I knew that, again, I'd have to find something to do with my life. And I'd always been interested in government and politics. Now, my interest in politics is a little different. Mostly, I want to keep politicians and government off of my back.
Right.
And I was like, okay, so what can I do? And this opportunity came up to run as mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. The mayor at the time, who is now our congressman, who I really like, is Congressman Tim Burchett. He was term limited, and that gave me an opportunity. It's very difficult to beat an incumbent, but for an open seat, you have a much better chance of winning. So I figured, well, I'm at a point in my life where I can do this, or I'm comfortable doing this, and I think I have a chance to win, and I decided to do that, and I did win.
When you went for the Republican primary, how did the media and the political establishment treat you? Is it like it's a joke, or they took you seriously?
Not really. And, of course, there were some people that did, but it was really, I was actually treated with respect. And I think the thing was that my biggest asset was also my biggest liability. And of course, that was the wrestling thing. Okay. Because people knew who I was. I was a novelty. And if it had ended there, I never would have stood a chance. It would have been treated like a joke. But I did my homework. I could talk about the issues. The way I looked at it was wrestling allowed me to get my foot in the door, but once I had my foot in the door, it couldn't be all the wrestling. I had to bring some substance to the situation, to the debate, and I think I was able to do that. I won my primary by
17 votes.
Out of 48,000 votes or something like that. Yeah, 23 votes. So it was very close. The really great thing about that whole experience was it was a positive experience for me. There was very little negative. I had two opponents, and they were class acts. Actually, one has become a pretty good friend of mine now. That was actually a really good experience for me. And it's really what politics should be. Okay, it wasn't the mudslinging and, the only reason you should vote for me is the other guy stinks. It was more of, talking about the issues and different visions that we all had for the county.
So you ran on the Republican ticket, but you're a libertarian and a true libertarian. So explain to viewers what a libertarian is and how that's different than like for example, I saw in 2008 you supported Ron Paul instead of George W. Bush, which libertarian, when you became one, was not as well known as it is today. What led you down that route instead of a classic Republican, and what is a libertarian?
Sure. When we think libertarians in the Republican Party, you think of people like Rand Paul and Thomas Massey and of course, Ron Paul. And the thing about it is the Republican national platform is very libertarian. In fact, Libertarian Party exists, and really the biggest differences between the Republican platform and the Libertarian platform are on immigration and abortion. Otherwise, it's about individual liberty and about free markets. So I was very comfortable running as a Republican, especially because that's what Ron Paul had done twice and had been a lifelong Republican. He also spent a couple stints in the Libertarian Party running for president, but nevertheless, most of his political career was as a Republican. Then you look at other people like Thomas Massey, like Rand Paul, like Justin Amash, who actually left the Republican Party, but nevertheless was a Republican for the majority of time that he was in Congress. And I should also say that Ronald Reagan once said that libertarianism is the heart of conservatism. Right. So libertarians believe in maximum personal liberty, which means you have to minimize government. Basically, we are fiscal conservatives and we're social I don't careists. We're often portrayed as social liberals. We're not. Okay, it's just government shouldn't be involved in many of the personal decisions that maybe a more typical conservative would think the government should be doing.
Right.
So we're actually we are small government, but we can make natural alliances then with our Republican brethren because we agree on most of the stuff. And I think, too, now we're seeing the real emergence of a liberty wing of the Republican Party with people like Massey and with people like Rand Paul in very influential positions.
Yeah, which didn't really exist before, so it is good to see. All right, now here's what I want to get to, which makes me really like you. You take June and July 2020, and if people that are watching can think back, that was when a lot of the people that are freedom fighters now were pro-mask, pro-lockdown, Republicans, everybody, because people were afraid of the virus. You were pushing back against even masks, let alone lockdowns, back when everybody thought this was going to be the second coming of the Spanish flu. Tell me, which was an extremely unpopular position to take at the time from everybody. I mean, no one supported that kind of stance. So what caused you to take that line to go against COVID tyranny that early? What did you see or what did you foresee?
Well, in defense of everyone, that was a very difficult time because no one knew exactly what was going on. My issue was the precedent that was being set and the fact that when we talk about a slippery slope, often people think that that's just a theoretical thing. It's not. And now we're seeing the slippery slope that we were on, okay? Because we've gone ahead 16 months or whatever, and we can see this is never going to stop. Okay, and the rules keep on changing, and the people that are in charge have used, and don't get me wrong, COVID-19 is a real thing. I mean, I got accused of being, accusing or saying that COVID-19 was a hoax.
Of course,
I never said that.
That's what they did. Yeah. Anybody that stood up for freedom, it's that you don't take the virus seriously. They couldn't see it. It has nothing to do with it wouldn't matter if it had a 10% kill rate. It's the fact that you can't ever allow anything to cross the lines of freedom that are drawn up in the Constitution.
We have a Constitution in this country, and that's what makes this country unique, is we have a document that outlines certain things that government can do and certain things that it absolutely cannot do. And it's funny, too, because people will say, well, the Constitution doesn't say the federal government can't do that. Well, it doesn't say it can. So if it doesn't say that it can, that means it can't, okay? Because, according to our system of government, according to that document, the federal government can only do the things that it's authorized to do. It's a foreign concept now. If we lose that becomes the real tragedy of COVID-19, because that's what separates us from every other country in the world. That's what makes us exceptional. It's this dedication to individual liberty. It's this trust that people will make the right decisions, or should be at least allowed to make the right decisions for their life, and that you don't have these experts who know best and can do whatever they want. And that's where we were going with COVID-19, with the mandates and lockdowns, is we were just saying, I trust that the experts know what they're talking about. Now it turns out, as we've gotten more science, and those of us who do follow science like myself, what we've been saying all along was, man, I don't know about this from a let's take the politics out of it. From a scientific perspective, how can we saying we're going to do all this stuff when we've never done this before, when there are no studies showing that this is the correct way to go, but we're just relying on some people that say that we should do this, okay? And we don't even know where in some cases, those ideas just popped out, okay? It wasn't like there was a study that said this or that. You just had someone somewhere say, like, where did the 6-foot social distancing rule come from? And the former head of the FDA has been out there now saying, we don't even know where that came from.
Right.
Okay. No one knows. I mean, it's just stuff that kind of somehow organically popped out there. And then, of course, when we look at the lockdowns, I was lambasted early on because I pointed out in Knox County we had a 3-day span where we had just a massive increase in suicides like we've really never ever seen before. Now, that was right when they were starting to announce the lockdowns and things like that. Was it due to lockdowns? I don't know. But certainly, if we look at a correlation at least between, depression, mental illness, aggravating that by saying, guess what? People aren't supposed to go outside. You can't go to work, all these things. That may aggravate someone who's already on the edge. And that was my argument, that in the long term, the lockdowns, all these things were going to cause more damage than the virus itself caused. And it's turned out to be the case. The thing about it is I really believe that human beings are designed to operate a certain way. And that's to make our own decisions, to have a high level of individual liberty. When you take that away from people, you're going to have disastrous unintended consequences. And that was basically my stance through the whole thing was, what we're doing now, it may sound really great, but there is going to be a price to be paid. And unfortunately, I think we're paying it.
No, and it's amazing how you go from being a villain last year, which I'm sure you still have plenty of people who don't like you this year, but the pendulum swung where you could see that the people that took your route last year had great foresight. So good job.
And look what's happening in Florida now with Ron DeSantis. And then of course the media doesn't even talk about COVID cases and how Florida has the lowest instance in the country now. But DeSantis has done a great job, and that took a lot of guts. And I remember listening to an interview with him early on, and he's a smart dude. And he said, I sat down with all the experts and looked at all the data, and then I came to my own conclusion. And then of course he also had a bias towards freedom, and it's working in Florida. And you can tell how political this is, because when Florida was doing really badly, the media was blaming everything on DeSantis. Now we have other parts of the country that are doing badly, and they're not even talking about it.
No. Tell me this. I know you believe in freedom, but so do a lot of people, and they remain quiet. Because if you start, I'm sure, I haven't talked to you, but June and July last year, I'm sure you were getting quasi-death threats on Facebook, and I hope they build a fence around your house and you die first and your family. So
sure.
Most people want to avoid that, so they stay quiet. Why do you care so much about freedom and liberty that you're willing to become a target for it for other people that don't even necessarily care about the stand you're taking? What's your motivation?
I grew up in a small town in Missouri, as rural a place as you can possibly imagine. My dad was retired military. My mom was a homemaker. When I look at my life and I think, how is it that someone like me could come from those beginnings? And we weren't like dirt poor or anything like that, but we didn't have a whole lot of money and didn't have any connections, right? And how is it that someone like me can be so blessed as to live the life that I've been able to live and do all the amazing things that I've been able to do? And I believe it's because I live in a country called America, where we have this thing called the American dream, where people like me who come from very humble beginnings, if you have the talent, if you have the work ethic, if you're willing to keep going no matter what, you can do anything you want. I've traveled all over the world. We are unique. We are built around that idea. Okay. So if I get to experience that, and my life has been awesome and amazing, how selfish am I when I look at my grandkids and I think I'm good. I've had mine. I'm going to sit back now and hope you guys make it, when there looks like there's a concerted effort to take all that away from us. I'm not. And in the end, that's what it's about for me. Thomas Paine said, if trouble must come, let it come in my days, so my child may have peace. That's absolutely what I believe. I owe everything I have as a human being to the fact that I grew up here and I got all these opportunities, and just what kind of person would I be if I didn't fight for that for my kids and my grandkids?
You mentioned your dad was in the Air Force. I know you were born in Spain. I'm sure while he was serving. What was your dad like?
My dad is still alive, and he and my mom is too, and they're like the Energizer Bunny. Actually, they're in their mid 80s, and every time they still live back in Missouri now. But every time I call them, what's Dad doing? He's mowing the lawn, or he's out for a walk, or doing whatever. But my folks they were not overtly political. Okay, we didn't sit around the dining room table and talk about politics. They were Barry Goldwater conservatives, Republicans. That's kind of how I throw them in there. In that they had a healthy distrust of government. One of my first memories, as weird as this sounds, was I'm a little kid and I'm sitting in the back of our car and we're driving under the high voltage power lines. And my mom says something about the evils of eminent domain and government taking people's property without their permission.
Wow.
Dude, I'm like 4 or 5 years old and I'm sitting back there going, eminent domain, that's evil. And it was just stuff like that. That they were just of that generation that still had a healthy distrust, more so just of centralized power and of politicians.
Do you have a book or no?
I do. I have a book out there. It's Mayor Kane. Yes, sir. And it's my life. The subtitle, of course, is My Life in Wrestling and Politics. And it's just my life story as well as some of my philosophy and a good deal of libertarian philosophy as well as Austrian economics thrown in there.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I'll end it on this. Let's say we were going to charter a plane for you and 2 other wrestlers or people that you met in wrestling. They either be in there, just the 3, you flying to like Japan or something for a WWE event. Who are the 2 most fun people you met in the wrestling world that you wouldn't mind being on a plane with for 14 hours?
Oh gosh, man, there's so many. One, my best friend in the wrestling business was Dustin Runnels, Gold Dust, and the other is actually a guy in. Politically, we agree on nothing because he's very much of the Green Party stuff. But Daniel Bryan is just a fun guy to hang out with, very intellectually curious and just a really smart guy. And it also goes to show you that sometimes you can disagree on stuff and you can still be good friends.
No, and a lot of times you don't agree with people in the Green Party, but they are the most fun to hang out with.
That's true, too.
Hey, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for coming on our program. And secondly, thanks for standing up for freedom. I know me and everybody watching appreciates it, and we love you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.